Okay, I'll call to order our capital planning subcommittee, Wednesday, March 30th, 2022. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This is a shortcake thing.
Introduction of members.
Carrie Gaudette, Blackstone. Mary Bolso, Blackstone.
Matthew Plant, Blackstone.
Scott Heber, Interim Director of Facilities.
Matt Aaronworth, Assistant Superintendent.
Tara Larkin, Millville. We have review and approval of minutes from March 3rd, and we also had held the February 9th. So if anyone wants to make a motion to approve both.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And they were very well done. might
Yes,
I add.
great minutes. Thanks, Carrie. And then, updates on capital outlay meetings.
Sure. So I just wanted to let everyone know that we have now been in front of every board that we could possibly be in front of at this point. And we've updated everyone on where we stand with respect to the whole statement of interest process. I was personally just in the system this afternoon looking at the questions and the pieces that we need to fill in and, you know, formulating some answers that will hopefully get us put into the pipeline. The other piece that I wanted to share was Dr. DeFalco and I, this past Friday, we had a chance to go out to a newly built school. We went to a school in Middleborough, and they had a high school that was just built. And even though it's just a high school, the population is similar to the number of students that we would potentially have in middle/high school if we move in that direction. And it was really, really impressive. The things that they are able to do with the space, like just to see the function meet the form, you know, and I specifically had conversations with the principal asking, like, now when you were in this design period, were the architects guiding you in, you know, telling you what you needed, or were you explaining your instructional vision and how you wanted the classrooms to be able to function, and then they were just helping sculpt it into what it would look like in a physical form? And he said it was absolutely a combination of, like, our team really drew up what we needed and wanted from an instructional point of view, and then the architects met with them and just formulated, you know, what it could look like. And it was really impressive. Each area had like a common meeting area that could have been for teams or grades or content. There were science labs that had functioning fume hoods. It was really impressive. And not only did they have functioning fume hoods, they were designed where it was 2 science labs, and then there was a prep room in the middle so that teachers could go in and there's access through the fume hoods to the prep room. So they go in, they have their chemical storage, and they could either go into this lab or that lab and push stuff in through the fume hood while other classes are going on, so that they are prepared, you know, when they come in for their class, it's all set up. And it was like, wow, that is really nice. Not to mention, they had everything laid out with fiber optic cables, and I believe they were able to televise their live football games from the field, which looked like a college field with the bleachers, and they even have a path. They have a path that goes from the school to the football arena. It's their Multisport Arena, and so the athletes can parade in down the center and come right out. It's almost like coming through the tunnel in one of the football team arenas. It was really impressive. So that's my update.
Awesome.
Mostly just me bragging about the great school that I got to go see.
When
But it was
that finished?
I'm sorry?
That was recently
It was
finished?
just recently finished. Yeah, they had a soft opening, I think, in April of last year, but really, I think they just really opened the school this year.
Yeah.
So it was,
I'd ask the square foot cost, but they're not gonna be applicable after the way the materials are right now.
yeah, that I couldn't speak to.
Yeah.
But it was really impressive, and they had a media center that was connected to a student area where kids could sit and gather and talk and do work, and then there was an encased section of the library which was books that the wall retracted if you wanted to make it an entire a larger space. It was really interesting. I will say the one thing that the principal emphasized, it had a very open feel, very much like almost like a community college. It looked like a small university, or felt like a college. And they were explaining that is one of the things they're still getting accustomed to, having the kids able to have that freedom during their lunches. They might be in this area, or during their class they might be in this section of the building working on a project for another class. And it's just that aspect of it. It was novel to them, and they've been growing into it this year, but they were saying it's still new to them, and they're trying to make sure that they react properly.
So I think it's great you're touring schools, and it's great to see a new one that's shiny, they're pretty. But I recommend going to see one that's 4 or 5 years old
Yep.
and ask them, what would you have left out? What did you miss? What the lessons learned,
Yep, that is exactly the plan.
and not the architect's answer.
Yeah, oh no, yeah.
Yeah, listen to the headaches and problems.
Yeah.
I'm going to a school tomorrow that is about 6 years old that's had mechanical issues for 6 years.
Wow.
That's the most
Nothing but
common
problems.
complaint. It's the most
Yeah.
common complaint, because the teachers still want to open the windows, and then the system's
The
not.
windows aren't operable. They've got this system that's supposed to just be doing fresh air exchanges. It's on a control system. Nothing's working right. This piece of equipment won't talk to that piece. Nobody can get anything to work. There's six vendor reps going tomorrow to try to chase through problems, because it's at the point now where people are talking about litigation.
Yeah. Oof.
For 6 years, they still can't solve problems.
We probably should have done that here for the windows when it happened, but that's set sail.
Yeah.
I don't know if it will still be this committee, or if we are going to branch into, the larger building committee with the community. My guess is there would still be representatives from this community, if not everyone. But
Technically, I am a community representative.
Exactly.
I don't belong to anything else.
well, I just mean I think as we move forward in the process, there's a more formal building committee that needs to be established, and whether it be members of this committee or members of that committee, which you'd all probably be a part of anyway, to your point, Mary, I think that is part of our next steps. We need to go and see some buildings that have been in place now for 5 to 10 years and find out what their growing pains were and what it is that they missed. Because it's always 2 years later that you go to do something and they're like, oh, we didn't think about this.
And I highly recommend Greg and DRA. I've worked with them before, but I would also recommend not just seeing their buildings,
Oh, yeah.
just because they might be open to some of the other ideas, like Sherwood Middle School in Shrewsbury it's about 4 or 5, it's probably 5 years old now.
Yeah.
And it has these extra wide halls that are basically breakout rooms so 4 classrooms in a breakout room, and a drop-down screen. It can be a quiet tutor space. It can be all 4 classrooms can fit there. Similar labs, different things like that.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely think we'll have to make a list of the schools that make the most sense for us to visit, and then try to get on their agenda. Sometimes it's tough with the administration, they're busy, so we just want to make sure that we coordinate it, but it shouldn't be shouldn't be a hassle.
So it's real easy if you reach out to the architect because they want the business, even though we want DRA. To go to the next step, the building committee gets 1 or 2 votes. The Mass School Building Authority gets the majority of the votes. So you'll never have the full weight of the votes to pick DRA.
Yeah.
So when we go in there, we have to explain how much they've done with us. They are the firm we want or whatever.
Well, and I don't want to speak on behalf of the committee. I wouldn't say at this point, like,
Right.
oh, we want DRA to do this work.
Right.
Greg's been terrific in the beginning pieces of the facilitation
Right.
of getting this committee up and started, and they did the facility study, which was very thorough.
Yep.
But to your point, we may tour some schools that we see these design ideas and the functionality of the schools that we hear. It's like there's not been a single problem with this building, or there's not ever been a
doesn't
concern,
happen.
right? Yeah, right. But
not the world of
there have
construction.
only been a few, major hiccups, and we may say, hey, let's talk to these architects or
It
whoever
goes
it
out to
is.
bid, right? So it's a matter.
It goes,
Yeah,
yeah,
it goes
so
to
it's,
bid.
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
Master General Law, Chapter 7, it's designer selection.
Yeah.
And we'll get proposals in, and we weight them.
Yeah, it's an RFP. It's a RFP process,
Yeah,
right?
but Mass School Building Authority is going to tell us who we get, is where I'm going with that.
Oh, I didn't
And
know
they,
that.
they spread it out. They have.
Gotcha.
There's probably 6 or 7 strong architects in the state that get the majority of the work. And they will say, well, DRA just got 2 schools. We know how many people they have on their staff, so now they spread it out. If you go to the designer selection page on the MSBA, you can scroll and see the results of this year, and you'll see the names over and over.
Okay.
And, they'll be shortlisted and weighted, and then you'll see, oh, yeah, it's been a while for them.
But that's really helpful
that way for
because
years.
yeah, but that's really helpful to know and even see where they are in the list of like who's up next, because then those next few companies might be the ones that we go to see their buildings.
Yeah.
Just make sure. Yeah.
Douglas High was Danisco. They're one of the regulars. Sherwood was Lamro Pagano. DRA did Sturbridge, Middleborough. Castle Booze, who did this school, is doing one in Foxborough right now. This, and then they're starting to get some in from out of state too.
Oh, wow.
More and more of these larger names. They see the Mass School Building Authority as a constant cash cow,
Yeah.
because 1% of our sales tax goes to these projects.
Yep.
So they know it's a revolving fund that's always going to be there.
Yeah. MSBA is not going anywhere.
No.
So,
And that makes sense too, like you're saying, go to the other schools, and even if this architect doesn't propose that to us in their plan, like, hey, we really love this
Right.
idea, even though, they may not bring it, but we could always say,
yeah.
whoever's on that committee.
From a program
Yeah.
stance, go see what they got.
Yep. Good.
That's hoping we get into the pipeline.
Right, yeah. Actually, I don't think that's on here necessarily, but we can just bring it up. SOI status. When are we, I know you guys are working on the statement of interest. Is there a date to
Yeah,
expect?
it has to be submitted by the 29th. So Dr. DeFalco and I are intending to submit it prior to the April break. But
Okay.
is that I think that's the 18th, is that Friday? I
Yep.
believe that's the Friday. But that's our intention.
Okay.
And I'm trying to think. I do believe we have to, there's specific language that needs to be in the vote for the statement of interest. So we may have to revisit that. Jason's going to speak about it with the committee. and
Okay.
see. That just kind of came to my attention today, so.
All right, yeah, because we don't have a meeting scheduled, but we can call one before if we need this committee to vote on anything.
Yeah.
Most of that is in their sample documents too. They have a section with the sample RFPs, everything.
Yeah, that's really helpful.
Good.
All right. That's my very long-winded report on that.
All right, capital outlay and more. On the one-pager in presentation, is that what the slide you have?
Yeah, so I'm going to turn it over to Scott for a bit, and I'll jump in as needed, but I think we've put together a one-pager. We were talking about what can we put out there and start passing around. Actually, speaking of passing around, does everyone have that?
Yep, everybody has it.
Okay.
There's a copy. I've got extras out there in case.
I said I was going to turn it over to Scott, so I will.
So as you can see, it starts out with an outline of what we've done in the past, leading up to the present, and where we're looking to go in the future. As you can see, it stretches all the way out to the timeline as to the finance and assessments. So it breaks down where we've been, the completed work, the current work, the upcoming work, and onward. So if you look, it starts out, the facilities assessment was done back in May, leading up to March 22nd, where we've sat down as a group and did the facilities assessment, found out what needed to be renovated or maintained and the cost of that, which, as we all know, leads up to the $80 million. And that was yesterday's figure, so
Yeah.
in today's figure, that's I'm sure that's grown. We did the capital improvement study, committed the CSI, formed monthly meetings, and talked about the facility needs. CSI also conducted and concluded that Blackstone Millville Regional High School was the building that needed the most improvement. We created the maintenance plan, which included creating my position as facilities director. We established the guidelines for upkeep and maintenance of the buildings, and we created a master plan where Capital Improvement Committee met monthly and considered the master plan of alignments, which, as we all know, was going down to the 2 buildings, moving the grades, moving the elementary schools to the middle school, and creating a high school, senior high school. All the existing facilities studied for suitable for future use of schools, the potential grade alignments, which I just talked about. And we concluded that the 2-school alignment would be the best, using the Hartnett Middle School and Blackstone Millville Regional High School. We also
I'm sorry, cut in. I know we have the current work that we're doing in the process, as I mentioned, actually filing the statement of interest. And then we've outlined some of the upcoming work. One of the things that I do want to point out right away on this sheet is if we look at the upcoming work, we know that we are going to need to talk about a feasibility study and looking at the scope of the project again and looking at the current rates and with respect to inflation, everything that's going on. I think Greg was able to come up with a bit of a different figure. So we originally were saying that it was going to be in the 800,000 range, and now I think we're looking at probably a 1 to 1.3 million.
So that number has moved
A few times.
almost every time it's got talked about. Because when it first started, when these conversations first started over a year ago, and it was a feasibility study, it was a $500,000 thing. Now we're at almost $1.5 million. I mean, I get inflation. I mean, I've seen 25% increases on everything I buy.
Yeah.
But that's a little crazy. That number is just getting.
And my guess is we're not going to get the actual figure until.
No, I understand that we're not getting an actual figure till it goes down, and it's going to be a budget range or not to exceed kind of a number or something, because a feasibility study is what it is. They have to do work, and it's however much work it takes. But you sat in all these presentations talking about $500,000 to $800,000, and now you're going to go back to the town a month later. They're already choking on these numbers and say, never mind, we need $1.3 million.
Well, the good news in that is if we do go into the program, a bulk of that is reimbursable as part of the grant funding. Another thing that was really good about visiting this school is we were able to talk about the additional things that were done to the school, or the additional what's the word I'm looking for? The additional pieces that were met. Like there were certain aspects of the building that were met that increased, and I'm sure Mary knows better than I do, it increased the amount of the percentage that MSBA would fund. So we've also started at like the base number of, okay, well, we're going to get a 50 some odd % reimbursement, but we could potentially get upwards of a 60%, you know, a 60% reimbursement or maybe more.
So some of those incentives are to take the edge off. It's not always, like they'll want you to be they don't call it lead anymore. You know, leadership and energy and.
Yeah, I know they have the green.
That's because you're only ever lead for the 5 minutes that you're being tested, and then you're never lead again.
To be lead certified or to be, you know, stretch code, which all the code incorporates now anyways, it costs more money for some of those that equipment. So they will give you an extra % or two. But from my experience, you always end up paying still a little more. So it's nice, it's touchy-feely, but it's not, the payback isn't always there. The other program that I was just looking to see if they still have, it's called the Model School Program that they were pushing. Did Greg mention that at all? Yeah, no. I got a feeling that one failed miserably. The idea was, we build a school, so now we've worked out all the bugs. We can build that same school. So you've got the same population. We'll build that over there in Marshfield. It's not Legos.
I did hear about that. I heard about that at one of the
Construction is always Legos.
Administrative summer programs for the superintendents. MSBA had spoken about that.
They tried it and it didn't. Well, from my experience,
I don't think
Marshfield especially, they ended up the site work. The building didn't fit on the site. That's the part that they, you know, and their program, just because they have 900 students doesn't mean.
You can't just take a building, you can't take a building from one town and just say, here, this is going to be an effective school for this community.
Yeah, you can't cookie cutter schools.
Some of the programs that they did have that unfortunately are gone, like the Mayaquan Lab program, there were some, so there might be some new incentives that I'm not up to date on. But as far as Matt's concerned with the cost, so I'm on the MSBA site, I'll find it. They actually have spreadsheets of costs, what they're getting, you know, what the OPM gets. And a lot of architects, you know, they figure out, it's not just the architect, which you all know, you have civil engineers, plumbing, mechanical, you have all this package all put into one bow. And sometimes the architects, lately the fees seem to be 10 to 14%, depending on the size and the complexity of the project. So because the market is so inflated right now with materials, we need to make sure that this cost increase isn't just a percentage increase. Oh, the cost of the project went up to $1 million from 500, so I still get 14% of that.
So they're taking their 14% of all the extra. Yeah, that makes sense.
So we want to see the break, if we can, we want to see some of the breakdown of their subconsultants. And some of the reason for those subconsultants is they have to have a certain percentage. I believe it's 18% of minority and women-owned businesses as part of their subconsultants. So,
That's good.
yeah.
I mean, that's good to know.
So that's something that I get a little suspicious when I see the number going that high, that they're doing, and DRA is not usually guilty of that, but that's just something that I would look at. I would want to see, are you doing this based on percentage of total cost, square foot percentage? How are you doing this?
Yeah. And to your point, Matt, at the Finance Committee this evening, Jason and Greg are there with this same PowerPoint presentation, at least this first run of it, and I believe they will get to the point where I believe they'll be addressing this change.
When you do a project with MSBA, and I ask this just because you have more experience here than anybody else with it, all of the incentives that come from anyone else, so any kind of energy incentives or any of that stuff, is that all factored into, like MSBA takes anything, so if there's a National Grid rebate for whatever
They'll
going
take their
green.
0.5% back. So if we go and we get a Green Communities grant for part of the renovation, MSBA will take their half back.
So if we can get National Grid to fund the LED lights, right, which I know they're not doing right now, but they're doing a lot of mechanical incentives. If you can get a chunk of money for that, MSBA takes their percentage off of that, and the town does still get some of that money back.
Yep.
Okay.
Usually about half, and it is most of the larger local, most of the people that bid this work are used to that. You put it in the spec that they have to track it, and they have to apply for it. You know, they do look for the incentives because it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
I have a feeling we will be having a lot more conversation about this stuff as we move forward and getting really into depth. And
Yeah.
Mary, I'm sure your understanding of it and your insight will be invaluable, because I know now we're kind of, we need to get our message out there.
Right, and then we get the
But,
guts later.
Yeah, we're gonna be in the weeds, I'm sure, at some point, and you can get strangled by them. And there's so many different areas to navigate, and like you're saying, these incentives and other opportunities for grant.
You look at your building as a whole from, so your educational space, what do you want for an educational space? Okay, great. Well, what about all of these other pieces that go into making this building work too? The security, the safety, the outside design, why do we still build brick schools? Why, I know that question's come up a million times at other schools that have been built. Why are we still building brick schools? But there's all of these pieces that go into any construction project, which is why an architect has a mechanical and electrical, plumbing engineers, fire protection guys, this guy, that guy, the other guy, because nobody can handle it all. And you almost end up with all of these little groups that are going to work on just small pieces of it. And that's something that, depending on how in-depth this capital building committee has to be, you're going to want to make sure that you have some expertise from different areas to try to be able to challenge some of that stuff.
Yeah.
Don't let an engineer, one of the worst things an engineer does is they over-design a building. And they design it because, hey, it's state money and it's a $100 million project. So we put every brand new bell and whistle into this building. Half of them you don't need. You can get away with, and I say get away with, you can have a fully functional building that does everything you need without using Mercedes everything. You can buy Chevys that work great. And that's one of the things that I've seen in construction for 20 some odd years, that every building I see come out is designed with Mercedes in it. And the schools and the buildings that do that tend to be the ones that end up with more headaches and problems.
Yeah, it's
So one comment,
duly noted.
people there are a lot of brick schools, because that goes back to your mentality as a childhood, but that's really changed a lot in the
Has
last
it?
10 to 15 years. And most of it's about maintenance. So Templeton Elementary School was just built with these beautiful masonite panels and this fake wood facade that looks something Frank Lloyd Wright-ish, and it's all maintenance free pretty much. Sherwood Middle School, which I mentioned, is Lucabon panels. You can pressure wash them if you need to. Everything's about the maintenance,
And the why do we still build brick schools is not me saying we shouldn't build a brick school.
Right.
It's that question came up at another school I was working with, where one of the contractors was like, why are we still building brick schools? Isn't there a better product out here than just brick?
Yeah.
But I like, that's one of those things that's just going to get thrown out occasionally, where someone's going to say, why are you building a brick school? And that's the stuff that I think having that expertise of saying, well, it's a more maintenance-free product. We don't have all these overhead costs over the next 20 years of keeping the building clean. Those little answers are going to be important to know through the process too, because you're going to get hit with, people are going to come up with a million more questions than any of us can ever think of just to try to derail your process, because they don't want to see their taxes go up.
Yeah. So that's a good segue. The million questions that people are going to have. I think what we really want to be able to do tonight is take a look at this one pager as a committee and say, hey, is there stuff that's missing, or do we like the presentation? Is there something we should change? And then similarly, we have this slide presentation that we put together. I think I don't know if I can access all of it. Oh, thank you, Tim. Which really, quite frankly, mirrors the one pager. It's like, okay, here are our talking points. So we tried to capture the talking points on the one pager so that we could get this to people and distribute it and speak to it, obviously, before we're distributing it. And then we put together this PowerPoint, which I'm going to figure out how to work. Let's see.
Here comes technical support. Somebody call the high school.
There we go. Nope.
Nope.
You can point it right
Epic
here.
fail.
Oh, my bad.
Oh, you went.
Is it which button on is it?
Remember we talked about that class to teach people how to use computers?
Yeah. I'm pushing the forward arrow. One would think
You're upside down.
We have to aim it over at the window.
it's.
Yeah, is it? You have it upside down.
Yeah, you're upside down.
So I'm trying to go backwards.
Pointing it at yourself.
There we go. So again, it's really the one pager put into slides.
So one thing that I see from this, we've always called ourselves the Capital Planning Subcommittee. On here, you talk about the Capital Improvement Subcommittee, the Capital Improvement Committee. There was something
Yeah, let's
else.
be consistent.
Yeah, you're very inconsistent on what you're calling it. And maybe it's not all meant to be this group. Maybe there's other groups that are being denoted in here, but
No, it's referring to this group. So it's an,
You know
it's
of
an
any
excellent
others?
point.
I mean, aside from our little facility subcommittee that was trying to pick off some low-hanging fruit in the beginning when we were trying to clean up some stuff around the schools, no, I don't know of anybody else.
I know,
It's growing.
our agendas say CPS. for
Yeah, I've always
Capital
done
Planning
CPSC.
Sub. I always, yeah.
Yeah, so
CIP and
CIP, CIC, one point we're the Capital Improvement
CIS.
Subcommittee, we're the Capital Improvement Committee under the master plan.
No, that's good.
We're called CIS in other spots.
So we go into CPS?
Just
Capital Planning
consistency,
Subcommittee.
whatever it's going to be.
I think it probably, the CPS.
CPS.
Yeah, because capital improvements is, I feel like, a different thing.
That's probably the work that is going with those spreadsheet, the spreadsheets where we're saying which little pieces do we want to take on, and not necessarily little. I shouldn't say little, but comparatively
Yeah.
little. And what's the order we want to address these things in? So, yeah,
I
that
like,
makes sense.
I think we need to, and this helps me every time when I start thinking, is explaining the feasibility study, how it will actually prove out our proposed thought that the high school is the best building to do, but this feasibility study will actually prove that, because we've had the questions, why not the complex, or why not middle school and something? So just like a
Just
reminder
build everything
that,
on this site.
just a reminder that the feasibility actually proves out what we think
Yeah.
was the plan.
Or disproves it.
Or
Is there a
disprove,
better
right.
option?
Prove out a different option if
Yeah.
there, yes.
So,
Is leveling the complex and building everything on that site a better option? Just turn
Right.
into a better option
mean,
for
it could-
the district.
It could surprise us. I feel
'Cause
like we did
went
a lot of
through-
work, but.
Yeah, we went through so many options to get down to those
Right.
couple final.
And they could throw it all out and tell you there's a better option somewhere else, like buy
Right.
the farm next door and rip
Yeah,
up the
they
solar
may say
panels.
the new land or, I don't know if we get land, but.
A magic land that we
Putting out
just
those solar
find.
panels now.
There's 70 acres behind me that I think he's trying to sell still.
Oh,
Blackstone?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I
Doesn't
don't know.
want to give them away.
Yeah,
No, I think it's up for sale for like 1.2 million.
what if we named a building after
Where
it?
is that?
The road leading up to
like
it.
what?
We're open to ideas.
Houskies Lane? So I live on TJ Lane. So it's
Oh, I know
the
what you
land
mean.
behind
Okay.
me. There's like a 70-acre tract back there that just got for sale for 1.2 million.
That's gotta abut the Blackstone,
It does abut Blackstone. Yep, it absolutely does. But there's a
Nature
huge.
classrooms.
Yeah.
See?
See, and then I can throw rocks at the school while it's being built.
right?
Sell my house as soon as you put the school back there, because it'll kill my property value.
You just ticked off a few of your neighbors.
That's all right.
so that's an excellent point.
Doesn't actually hurt
that
your property
we
value.
We want to try to emphasize a little bit more that the feasibility study will have that.
Develops the actual.
The feasibility study will help develop the actual plan of what the new school will look
Yeah.
like and what the best options are for the town. It's not just what we came up with. Smarter people than us.
Yeah. I know one of the things that is, I don't know that it'll be easy enough to explain in a one-pager. On the bottom, we have some of the financial landmarks, and I don't know that people will necessarily understand, okay, band one is sold to bond one, into bond one.
Yeah, we need to make that more.
I was gonna say, is there a way to make that? God, I almost wonder if it just shouldn't be there yet.
Yeah, what are you trying to show?
I think it's
When does the
just,
taxpayer have to?
yeah, I think
Biggest
it's
tax
just
in-
as
when
the
it's actually gonna hit
financial-
you.
Yeah.
the financial impact will hit people. But to that point, Mary, like, here's the vote to fund feasibility study. To me, that's clear. Right?
That is clear.
Here's, and whether it hits their tax bill or not right then and there, that's when they're approving it or when they're deciding upon it. So I think those kinds of landmarks, and then again, the vote to fund the design and construction.
Yeah, I don't think they're gonna know. A lot of people aren't gonna understand what a bond anticipation note is.
Yeah, I don't
What
think
they're gonna
they-
understand is that it's
I didn't even know what a
a
band was.
pizza a
Thanks.
week.
I know,
Right.
like, oh, can you
This is-
explain what
well,
a band is?
yeah, well, it's really, there's short-term borrowing and longer-term borrowing. And then in the middle, there's people approving the borrowing and people seeing the money coming out of their assessments, which is probably the two more important pieces that people are going to want to see.
But if you set this up as just the vote dates for now, because I mean the point right now is to get people talking, right?
Mm-hmm.
To try to get barraged with as many questions as possible before we hopefully get to go to them and say, hey, we've been approved. You know, we're in this pipeline. We need to do this feasibility study. We need a vote for this. Take out some of the confusion. Because I looked at that timeline and was like, I don't know what any of this means except, okay, you want me to vote here to say yes or no? You want me to vote here to say yes or no? All right, so a bond assessed, that's about when it's going to hit my taxes. And then any final assessments for overages in construction that always happen.
Right.
You know, some of that other stuff might just be confusion.
Yeah, and this is really more for general public, not necessarily, our municipal finance advisor will know
Right.
when it is that we're
Yeah.
going to be dealing with the bands and the bonds and what to do.
Yeah, but if you leave the assessments in there where, all right, first
yeah,
part of the
that piece,
construction,
yeah.
but
Yeah,
some of the other,
absolutely.
a bond being sold, a band sold,
Yeah.
I don't know if I care about any of that stuff as a taxpayer. I just want to know when
band
you're going to
sold,
start taking more
bond
money out of my.
sold
Yeah, when I get to
What are my
choose,
taxes
when
going?
I get to choose, right? When I get to choose whether or not we want to fund this, and when I should see this start hitting my wallet.
I feel like
when there's
I
a-
don't get to choose anymore. I think being part of this group, I just have to vote yes.
As a community member, you have that right to
Yep,
choose.
yep. Choose to send my kids to a school that's falling down. I really don't have a choice.
That's I appreciate you looking at it that way.
I mean, I'm an honest, straightforward person. Let's make this simple.
I know.
Well, and that's the way we're gonna get the rest of the town people to look at it too.
Yeah, can you? So you talk about, and I'm jumping all over your
Oh, it's okay.
your one pager here, but so like you talk about the upcoming work being ongoing multiple community meetings with both towns, presentations, and public meeting anticipations. I almost feel like in your one pager you should put some kind of a mark on there, like I don't know how long it takes, and forgive me for being politically ignorant in this town. How long does it take to set up some kind of a special meeting, a little town hall style meeting in this town? If we wanted to do it at, say, the auditorium where, it would be easier to have more people in. So
Is it just like
the
a
other nice
2-week
thing,
posting requirement?
or maybe doing it,
I'm not sure.
maybe doing it in the library in the high school where people can see the actual shape of the building to walk in.
Now, when you say a special meeting, do you mean for informational purposes?
Yeah, like a town
Okay.
like a town hall style
but not
meeting.
a
where-
voting,
no,
any
not a
kind
voting
of
meeting. Just
meeting. Yeah.
a meeting where the public is welcome to come into the building, especially now that COVID restrictions are relaxed. We should try to get some of those on before those restrictions come back into place, because once the Russia Ukraine thing's done, that's going to happen.
Yeah, so we
or
did
is it
actually,
after midterm
last
elections?
meeting is hold tours, open houses around the building.
Just some meetings, could you set some of those dates on this? That way, someone sees, all right, so school's out June 20th. So in the end of June,
Yeah, June 22nd and
Sorry.
23rd for the high school.
You're gonna have that all over Facebook tonight. People are gonna be like, "Did your school's out June 20th?"
That plan said the 20th.
that plan
Why are we
doesn't
going
work
to
for the
school on
schools.
Monday? Why do we have to do the Monday?
I'm trying to remember a date that's like the most unimportant date in my entire calendar for the year. Because that's when my kid doesn't have something to do from 8 to 2:30.
No, that's really good. That's really good.
Like, even if we say, all right, so school's out the 23rd of June. Thank you for correcting me.
Yes.
On the 24th, so people can, hold the night of the 24th, or the night of the 23rd even, because that's a half a day. Let people come in and see what the school is like at the end of the school year when these kids are sitting in these classrooms. Because it's going to be a nice hot day and everyone's going to come into the school and die and be miserable.
Yeah.
And I don't say that to like,
It's just eye-opening. It's aware.
yeah, like
you realize.
let people understand what it's really like, because I think about it all the time. When I was a kid, we didn't have central air conditioning. I slept with a fan. If my central air breaks in my house now, I wake one of my guys up at 10 o'clock at night to come, if I don't have what I need to fix it.
Yep.
Somebody's bringing me something to fix this. It's just, and it's something that I've learned in the trades, is that as I'm moving, down the line in years, people care more about their air conditioning now than they do about their heat. Someone will wait 2 days for me to fix their heat. If I tell you it's 2 days to fix your air conditioner, you lose your mind. From a general consensus of the public. So showing some of these people like the real condition of the school right at the end of the school year, before they've had a chance to go in and before the custodial staff's had a chance to go in and clean
Spruce
and
it up and make
it
it
all
look
pretty
brand
for
new again.
make it look as pretty as possible for that first day of school meeting or the introduction meeting when you start showing parents around and pick a date and put something on there to let people come in and really see it.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And another piece of the agenda this evening was to try to start identifying forums for that. Who can we reach out to? Where are the groups that we need to get to? And I know we listed some off the last time, but I think we might need to start having some kind of a divide and conquer process where people are saying, okay, I know this group, I know that group, I can reach out and see. Because if we do that in advance, then we could put those dates on here too. So that is an excellent point.
Do we need to wait until we get accepted?
That was my one thought on it too. I'm wondering.
So I would tell you that I wouldn't wait to be accepted, and my reason for saying that, just as forget being part of this committee, my reason for saying that is, we all know that if we don't get accepted,
We still need to.
do something.
Yeah.
We don't get a choice you're going to come to a point where we don't have a choice. The more small meetings you can hold, where even if it's a once a month thing, where I'll volunteer to be available once a month to be able to answer questions on top of my commitment to here, and change which school it's at every month.
Yeah, say we should
let
do the
people
other
come in and
buildings.
see the complex. Let people come in and see what AFM looks like now, and everyone remembers when you were a kid what JFK was like. My eyes were open coming to meet with you at JFK and walking through the school with the electrician and seeing just the state of the building, and how old it is. And it just, you think of that memory when you're a little kid, like this big, huge place. It's not anymore though. It's so different now. And it's so out of
Yet
date
it's the
having
same.
seen.
It's just dated. It's so dated.
It's so out of date having seen,
Yep.
the day one of the days that I met with you at the elementary school, I had just been in a brand new elementary school 3 days before that doing a startup.
Okay.
So to see the differences, I'm like, this place looks so dingy and dark, but it's dark woodwork. It's all of these old design traits that aren't there anymore.
Right.
And I think that would be something that would be good.
Yeah, I think that's a really.
But you remember it from being a kid as this shiny, bright.
Oh, it was
This
great.
magic.
I loved
this,
it there.
This place, yeah. Like I loved
oh.
school, and God, I remember computer lab, and it was like so wonderful. And my kid's like, "There's no computer lab anymore, Dad. We all work with laptops."
Yeah.
I'm like, but computer lab, we used to play Oregon Trail, and it was so much fun. Yeah. See, now we'll all show our age.
Right?
Yeah, and again, it's a valid question. Like, what are we doing before we get accepted? But I think it's true. It couldn't hurt to get people into the
It could
buildings.
not hurt us to get support for
because
people.
We need to do work.
Yeah, because we can show, obviously, we have the list of what every building needs.
Yeah.
So if we're at Millville, we kind of talk about that list, as well as, we can highlight, this is great, but these 10 things need to be done, which,
Yeah.
they don't balance out. It's still in favor of it's.
Well, and those are the ones we can control ahead and put on this one pager, right? So even while we're still trying to figure out our speaking engagements, are we going to the senior center, or are we going to go to this club or that club? We know what we can do in the buildings, and we can set those up far enough in advance.
Yeah, set up something during April vacation. Set up something during May. Like I think you should be pushing to try to get people to walk through your school buildings
the
as often as
schools.
possible.
Yep.
You talk about, and when you brought up the point of go to schools that are 5 to 10 years old and see what they would have done differently. Something else to consider: what would you have done differently in this building if you were like when you do the tour of this building? And something to bring up would be what would you have done different? What things are in this building, and this building better than probably all of us combined.
Probably.
What things in this building could have been different? Not from a technology standpoint, because technology 20 years ago was different. But what things in this building would have made this building better? Because there's always that hindsight's 2020.
Yeah.
But that would be something to bring up with. All right, so this building is pretty much ADA accessible, I assume. When you talk about this building versus some of the others, well, you can't because of this. But what if ADA codes change? How much flexibility can you put into this building or that building? Having glass openings on doorways so that door could actually be expanded if needed. Some of those kinds of things would be good to be able to put together as points for each school, including this school. Show people what 20 years does to a school.
Yeah, and that actually, it might be good if we're going to do these tours to your point, like maybe we should have not necessarily an agenda, but some items, again, to point out, a handout for each school. Hey, take note of this or take note of that.
Sorry, grandson.
That's okay. Yeah, so that also could be something that we do.
Yeah, like you said, and we have more control over picking those dates, the school building ones, as opposed
So-
to
You
finding
have control of the
groups.
dates and control of what you really talk about. I mean, it gives you an opportunity to show the worst.
We did do a walkthrough with the town boards in September,
Right.
Yeah.
and people were mortified even
But that's what I mean,
then.
but bring
And
that
the
up-
floors were shiny and everything was clean,
Yeah.
but everything was so dated that it was horrifying.
But bring
People
the general
walked out of
public-
there saying, there's no way I'm sending my kid to this school.
So we might be able to do it two birds with one stone. We all have trouble getting people to come to town meetings. Maybe we expand, if the parents are gonna be in the auditorium, we have certain groups, whether it's yearbook committee or whatever, do babysitting, daycare, whatever you wanna have it, in the classroom, get them to have to walk through to get there. Have, in the cafeteria, you could have Girl Scouts, serving coffee. If there's groups like the, prom committee or whatever that need to raise money, they can be selling baked goods. Just ways
Yeah, we
to
did
get.
talk about that at our last meeting.
Is there still Boy Scout troop in town? I
Yeah,
know
there is.
they were out of St. Paul's Church originally, but
There's actually a couple active.
Yeah, I think there's a
troops.
couple Boy Scouts and Girl.
Yeah.
both,
but if you get the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, let them use the school as a fundraiser. It's going to get people, might help drum more people in.
Right.
The drama club shows, do something
Oh,
do
yeah.
something tied to those. Do something tied to band events or sporting events where you can open up the school, and even if it means that a couple of us are there for a few hours.
Well, we just had the 5th grade concert last Friday night, and I was watching some people who probably haven't been in that school since either they were or had never been because they didn't come to school here for the first time, seeing the 5th grader, and they're looking around, and it was just that small area, right, auditorium, band room section, and some of them are like, either it hasn't changed or wow, I didn't know it looked like this. So
Yeah, it's not what I
people need the
envisioned. It's
tour.
not what I envisioned every day when I send my kids here.
Yeah.
You like lower yourself into the seat and you're like, let's hope this is a good seat. Some of them bend a little bit more.
Yep.
I didn't realize that was an issue until I went for a concert a couple of years ago and sat in one and tipped way far forward. And I was like, I'm gonna fall on my face. Or just the realizing, when you're a kid, that auditorium seems gigantic. As an adult, you're like, God, I've been at games at Fenway that have more room than this.
Yep.
We've had some town meetings where, it was 85, 90 degrees outside.
know.
You had to open the doors and put fans to blow air in. It was so stifling in there.
And you've got the noise issue, right? Now it's like it's
Yeah.
a trifecta of,
Yeah, that was just a little while ago. We were worried about people getting sick at that one.
Yeah.
yep.
Oh,
I do
It
like
was
the
right
idea
before
of
COVID, wasn't it? The year
town
before
meeting
COVID?
though. Every group in the high school is always looking to fundraise. So if one was spread out here and spread out there, and
Yep.
How
With
much-
different
how much could we
age groups,
spread them
different
around?
options.
Well, we need to get them to go to different areas.
Yeah, but I mean, how much could you spread them around and actually get people to leave the auditorium from the town meeting and go into the cafeteria, going to the gym is easy.
Right.
it's going beyond that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
but
then
it's
the
the-
time,
And
because
how
when
do
the
you get
meeting
the-
gets long, it gets to be either people probably can't, not everyone can get there early, and a lot of people don't want to go after it, depending on how long the actual meeting
but
is
if
that
you
year.
could, if you have a way to set up some kind of a babysitting for town meeting and do that in like lower B wing
Yep.
or
That's
upper
the
B
idea.
wing.
They come early to
Do anything, Tara? The
Drop the
District
kids.
of One event? Open the building up
Yeah,
that
we
day?
had talked about having little tours there too. So May 15th, we're doing that District of One, like a outside field day event type stuff, but also had talked about trying to get some tours around the building.
Yeah.
So May 15th, the high school will do one too.
Yeah. And announce it with your
Sorry, we
your
have
fundraiser,
vacation.
like the PTO fundraiser stuff that you're
no
doing.
vacations.
No vacation that day. You're stuck working. Try to get
Yeah,
people
we
that don't
can
just talk bad about the school.
Yep.
Have some teachers there. Things like that are always great. When you walk into a classroom and talk, and you see a classroom set up, and it's like, what challenges are to this classroom, to teaching in this environment?
Right.
I mean, I didn't even realize until I got involved in this that teaching isn't done the way it was when I went to school. I didn't realize you don't just stand up front and lecture to kids anymore. That's how high school was. That's how college was. I've been lectured to for the last God knows how many years. I didn't realize it was being done differently now.
Yeah.
And until my kid starts talking about trying to do breakouts, and I'm like, we used to spin desks together and make a ton of noise, and that was it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's apparently all their learning, or a good chunk of their learning, is that way now, and so it's been
Yeah, no,
eye-opening
it's-
for me.
Really, no, it's really valid
Well, in some of the slides, you'll see, you know, rooms that do have breakouts and newer buildings and stuff, and
Oh, yeah, we did include some other pieces. In the slideshow, we did include some of the talking points from what, again, facilities subcommittee, right? It's not consistent. These are some of the things that we, discussed as a group, just to get us to where we are. And then, again, another portion of the one-pager, which we're gonna work on. And then to Scott's
Showing
point,
his-
these are just some of the images of places.
These are some. I'm assuming these are all DRA buildings, because these are all pictures Greg gave us.
I think so.
Did he say all but one was, I think he may have taken one from somewhere else, but these are all local schools, like,
Yeah, but
Blue-
when you
yeah.
talk about, like, they didn't do Douglas, they didn't do how many other buildings, like, if we could get pictures from some of
Grab
those
some
schools
pictures
to
of
see.
other ideas,
Because it's
too.
one thing for them to be able to show off, look at the great classrooms we do, but regardless of who the architectural firm is, look at what new schools look like nowadays. Not just look at what they've done in the last 2 years.
And one of the things that you'll notice, and we noticed really, it was extreme, I shouldn't say extreme, it was really evident in this Middleborough. If you look in the upper left-hand corner, everything's on wheels.
Yep.
The entire classroom is mobile. And it needs to be, because one of the things, like we keep saying, oh, our technology is outdated, so we have to update it. Well, we have to make sure that when we update the space to fit the technology, that we don't get stuck with old technology again, and that we can roll the old technology out and move the new technology in, and that the space is still conducive to the instruction that needs to go on, regardless of the materials and the tech that's there.
Well, that gives you the opportunity to move the material and not the whole class when that's necessary with younger age groups and whatnot.
Yeah. There were a lot of labs and art rooms with rolling furniture in
How
this
much of
building.
that will you be able to incorporate in this building as this building changes over to being more of an elementary school? That flexible space? Or are we going to be handcuffed in this building?
It's too early.
I think it's I don't want to say the wrong thing, but I mean, depending on how much we're investing, I mean, we could potentially change some of the furniture, you know what I mean, the layout. The rooms are relatively, they're a good size in this building, so there's the space to do different things. But again, as we move towards the funding process, furniture is actually a big thing. I've
when you
heard
put
stories.
the smaller desk in, it's
Yeah.
going to make that room feel that much larger too.
Yeah, yeah. Or tables that are, smaller tables. that
And that's
are group work.
because I understand how much furniture costs. That's why I'm wondering how much of that, it's $6 million to remodel this place, but does it turn into 10 because
yeah, I
the
don't
goal
think
is to go to
included
more of a
furniture.
flexible space,
Front-
and that's
yeah.
going to require.
Furniture, fixtures, and equipment are per student flat rate that they give you, and it's never enough. It's the bare minimum, because they're keeping the playing field equal, so schools in more depressed areas that don't have that money have the same opportunity as, the Waylands and the Sherburns. It's just like the site work is capped at 8% the match. So if we put in a football field, that's gonna be on us. I'm not saying we shouldn't do it, but it's 8%, because look at how the inner city schools that don't have fields, they have a sidewalk. So even though they're saying we're gonna get 46 or 48% match, there's a whole algorithm, there's this whole 3011 spreadsheet that you put in, and it's about 15% of mechanicals, that one's a little off, I think, there's maybe 26 for that. But not everything is a one-to-one match.
Yeah, so if you spend.
It's still a great deal.
It's still a great deal. It's better than paying for it all out of pocket. But if you
Right.
spend $100 million on a school and only $80 million of it is in that 50% cap rate, 50% reimbursement range, the other 20 comes off differently. So
I know I have heard those stories. Again, I can't say that, I've been there and I experienced this, but everyone's heard that story of schools that are we just built this terrific building and now we have all of the same furniture from, like 1982.
That
It's
happened at Oxford?
and if it works, that's fine, but if it's not functional for what you want that space to be anymore.
Watching
they did
custodians
hit some
scrub
of it.
furniture when they're bringing it into a brand new building because it has gum still on the bottom of it, so you know it's not new furniture. Like that's
Yeah.
Well, that's another thing that has upgraded. Chairs aren't, with accessibility, chairs aren't tied to tables as much anymore. And tables are more flexible in their shape. They can be turned into rounds. They can have, it's a whole different,
Yeah. It's a different world. So that's got to get cleaned up. Are there any other thoughts on things that we're missing? Again, the slideshow really just mirrors the one pager. So I think cleaning up the timeline is good. We need to simplify it. We need to call out the specific financial milestones. We need to.
So all
be
these bond
consistent.
assessed ones, are these when like we would see as taxpayers would see like the
Yeah,
tax increases,
that's-
basically?
yes.
Okay.
So it's gonna be gradual, it's not all at once.
Well, that's what I think we were trying to get across. Remember, in our last meeting, we were saying people think that their wallets are going to get hit next week if, we submit a statement of interest. And it's like, whoa, that's not what's going to happen at all.
Yeah.
There's a whole process that we need to go through. And even for the feasibility study, you wouldn't see an impact on your taxes for another year plus. So I think that's what we were trying to get at through the timeline, but I think it could be a little clearer and,
Yeah, because that's, everyone wants to know that, right?
simplified.
We want to know, when is it going to cost me more money? So if that can say,
Yeah.
you will see in text.
yeah. I mean, maybe changing your bond assessments. Is there a way to make that cleaner so that everyone understands like this is expected first tax assessments? Instead of just calling it a bond assessment.
Yep.
Because someone who's not financially literate, they may not even understand what that means.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Red blocks are when it's going to hit your wallet, so that I can see those 3 clear red blocks.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't know. Maybe we put it there as that. Expect to see
Wallet hit number 1. Wallet hit number 2. Final wallet hit.
Expect to see some financial implications.
Tax increase coming.
Tax increase or whatever it is. Again, not that those are the things we're trying to,
No, but it makes it a
make
little
big
easier
deal
for.
of, but
we
they're
talk about
important. But they are
Yeah.
important.
Yeah.
So
Like, that's when it's
we're
like,
also
okay.
not trying to skirt around them.
You're going to know 2 years from now, you're all going to see an impact. If this passes, everything goes, whatever. In 2 years, you'll see your first increase in taxes.
Yeah.
So if that's what it is, then have that say that.
Yeah.
see, to me, that looks at my taxes are gonna keep going up. Going up here,
Yeah,
going up here,
it just-
going
yeah.
up here.
Yeah, and that's probably
That's how it's
a
gonna
little more
happen.
deceiving than it is accurate with respect to what will really happen with your taxes.
So it looks like a snowball to me.
Yeah, and people think you see band 1 and bond 1 and bond 2, and it's like, whoa, we keep financing and financing more and financing more, and it's like, nope. That's just the process rolling over, there might be additional costs at that stage of the project, but it's all still, one piece of financing. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never seen it done that way.
yeah. I think this is helpful because we can work to clean this up. And then I think the other piece that we wanted to try to discuss is reaching out to these groups.
Yep.
That is something I think we need to, we
And we- well,
identified some.
I mean, do we even have a garden group? Garden club? We do?
There is, Blackstone has one.
Oh,
It's
good.
Blackstone Millville. It's
Are they
Kate
together?
Don-
Yeah.
Yeah, Kate Donovan.
Oh, okay. Yep. I have actually seen.
So I think
on
at the
that.
last meeting, Jane had referenced reaching out to the town administration and identifying what groups are still active and, if and when they meet and where. So that might be something we need to make sure we follow up on because I haven't really.
That's a lot. Some of our groups have like 4 and 5 people on them. Like historical has 5 people. That's a lot of groups.
Yeah. Well, but at least if we get that information, it might be good for us to
Yeah.
take a look and say, okay, what groups are meeting where and how many members are there? Does it make sense to go to this group for,
Right, or invite them
or
to
just
a.
invite them?
another
Invite a
meeting.
couple of groups to one of our open houses.
Yeah. I mean, they are, the historical's a bad example because they are aware of what's going on and they just had that wonderful field trip.
Oh,
It was
yeah, they've been
extremely successful.
terrific. We've
Yeah.
been doing a lot of work with them. Yeah. And I didn't interpret it as they were out of the loop when you said that.
No. I just meant, we have a lot of boards and committees. It would be a lot for,
Yeah. And some can get to our open houses, and then other organizations or groups of people
Yeah, it's almost like
can't
an
get there.
outlet to reach out to them and say, please share this invitation to come to this meeting for us. Not that we necessarily have to go to that small
Yeah.
group or even big group. It's actually probably better if we invited them places.
Well, especially now, because we're talking about really making the focus having people see the buildings.
Yeah, they gotta
They would
see.
like to have you come.
we-
to
it's-
it.
it's-
Invite 2 or 3 of these groups and do something where do coffee and pastries at
that's
the
what I was
school.
going to say. You got to have food or they're not going to show up.
Feed them school lunch. Let them see what the kids get.
Right?
I don't think it's that bad anymore.
It's what?
I don't think school lunch is like it was when we were here.
No.
No,
No.
it varies.
I believe the last time I had a bunch of teenagers in my house, they said it's not as bad as it was 5 years ago.
Oh,
It's not as bad as it was middle school lunch was, or it's not as bad as elementary school lunch was, or apparently they all think high school lunch is better.
okay. We have more
But I'm
choices.
assuming it's all of the lunches that have gone up.
Well, that's funny because the cook from the middle school moved up to the high school. So
Make sure I tell them all
surprise
that.
has changed.
I'll tell them all that next time they're over. I'm sure during vacation I'll have 6 screaming girls running around my house.
Yeah, we still need to do that video, a video footage too of the building for those families and people that really won't be able to come in. So we can make
Well,
that
yeah, I have a
available.
few-
Like that 3D tour. I know Greg was talking about. I might have to reach back out to him and see.
Yeah, there's actually a software that I used on, it was actually extremely helpful. It showed all the existing conditions. So we did it to sell the project, and you could zoom in. You could open a door and go in. It was, I can get the name of the company. But not only was it extremely important to sell to the residents, show them the conditions of the locker rooms and that, but when we had some change orders later, it was like, no. So
Yeah.
you knew it was there.
Right?
Yeah, you mentioned the locker rooms. I mean, I will say myself, I hadn't really been into the high school locker room until we were having some issues earlier we were dealing with some of the mold remediation, and you go into the locker rooms and you're like, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I can imagine.
It's people should see them.
Yeah.
You know, they really
Lockers
should.
are all beat down and shower stalls.
And that's the view, though, that all the visiting teams that come play here
See.
have.
Half of us.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's- oh. Okay.
The video would be great.
What, are there things we are missing, things that we need to think of? And again, I think, Jason and I can work on the open houses and setting up the buildings. I think we probably need to some extent, divide and conquer with respect to reaching out to the community organizations. I don't know.
Is it possible to get a list of all the organizations and contact chairpersons?
Right, that's what Jane was speaking about at one of our last meetings. I think we need to follow up with Jane and see
Yeah, 'cause,
if
I mean, does the
she may
town
have
have
she
a
may have
list?
done that. She may
Town
have
clerk
done
should
that,
have
or
it.
at least did an initial contact. So
Before
Yeah.
someone else reaches out and does the same thing.
yeah,
Yeah, the town clerk has the keeper of that and knows when, because she swears people in with boards and commissions, so she knows when they're expired and who's on there. She may not necessarily, well, she should know the chair because the chair has the authorization to post.
Yeah, but even as far as the scouts,
No, she won't know that.
like that's what I'm wondering, those other outside groups, Lions Club,
That's, you just gotta call, you just gotta know, okay, that's Tony Catalano.
right?
Just,
Yeah, like does somebody know someone in
yeah.
that garden club in the
Maybe- so
Scouts,
maybe-
in the senior center?
So why don't we,
The local
Well-
churches, however many
Apparently,
places.
the church is all merging into
Yeah.
one. I
Yeah.
just heard this big news.
so what I can do,
We'll find them in all at St. Paul's.
so,
Oh, that's not going to go over well.
Right?
It's the second church over there they've closed. They closed the one in Bellingham that is now a Walgreens.
Assumption Parish.
Oh, that's right.
Thank you. I'll never remember the name of it. But when that got closed down, a lot of those people went to St. Teresa's because they didn't want to have to go anywhere further away. And even then, it was a big hubbub. Now you're going to tell them all they can only go to this one.
They might just go down the road to Woonsocket.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
obviously.
I would have thought St. Teresa's would have been the next.
so
two
do we have a
churches.
volunteer to just follow up with Jane
It's worth
I can touch it base with Jane.
and see where she is?
Yep.
And what I can do with respect to the knowing a person or knowing who to call about this group or that group, I can put together a spreadsheet, like a Google spreadsheet, and share it with everyone.
Okay.
Yep.
And then all of us can kind of say, hey, who
Just type
can
in
we
a
think
name
of?
and
Right,
contact
type in
number,
a name,
and then
contact,
I reach
organization. Yep, and see. I mean, and at first, we wouldn't ask anyone to reach out just yet, but let's start gathering that information so we have it in one place.
I would think a good person that might have a lot of that, and I'm gonna mention her, is Celeste Langlois from Parks and Rec, because every time she runs an event, she partners with Lions, she partners with this group, that group. Everything she does is all inclusive, so she may have a lot of that.
That would be, yeah, and I don't know if Jane may have reached right out to her. I can't speak to that.
Yeah, she works with Honor Society, all the groups.
Okay.
Yep.
So those are two good action steps. So we'll follow up on making sure we're in touch with both towns, their clerks and or Parks and Rec, and seeing which of those groups we can identify, and then I'll put together this Google sheet that we can identify some of the smaller organizations. Like, she may not know about Cub Scouts. Well, she may, but you know,
Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, the
Boy Scouts.
local churches. I mean, there's still the church in Millville.
yeah.
'Cause I'm pretty sure the brick one at the end of Blackstone Street's closed. I don't think I've seen anybody in
The
there in a
little one
long time.
closing?
Well, St. Augustine's, St. Teresa's are going to St. Paul's, but there are other churches.
Oh,
in Millville.
St. Augustine's is closing too?
Yeah, they're both going.
Oh, church admission must be way
Those
down.
three that are going to St. Paul. But then there's other churches, and there are other churches in Millville as well.
Just knew about the one up on the hill.
Yep.
So do we
Unless
have
the church
another?
would've
Do
taken
we
it,
have
would've
another
carried.
meeting planned?
We wrote April 27th, but
Yeah, I was like, you sent me an invite to one on the one meeting that I wasn't here for. Yes, the 27th.
We
at
wanted to
5:30.
keep you on your toes.
I was up on a roof working when I got the invitation, so.
We don't want to distract you when you're up on a roof working.
I was in Gorham, New Hampshire. It was nice to tuck out of the wind for a little while. That was a miserable job.
are we going to need a meeting before April 27th, though, depending on the statement of interest? If that's the case, do we just want to,
Well, we already voted to send it in. I don't know if we need to see it.
yeah, do we need to do anything more?
I don't.
You're more familiar with the wording, probably. if you're-
I don't know that we need to do anything before the 27th if we have that on the books, but let's make sure that we have these action items, that we're taking care of them prior to the 27th, because once that statement of interest goes in, I think we really need to start drumming up the tours. And to Matt's point, we'll be coming to the end of the year shortly thereafter, where we can open the buildings right then and there. So it will be helpful.
Looks like May 9th, we had written, is Millville's town meeting. So maybe we have a tour that night.
Yeah, no, that's a
First
great
tour.
Where is
Great idea.
Saturday, April 9th? Is Millville?
No, May 9th.
Oh, May 9th, sorry.
Okay.
Where is
Yeah, it's
that
a
meeting
Monday.
held?
At the Millville Elementary School.
Of course, we're gonna.
Is this
bring them
coming
through
Monday?
one of the best buildings. I said, of course, we'll be bringing them through one of the best buildings.
That's what I was
Yeah.
thinking.
But it has seats, and you can highlight
does.
and how as far
Have them
as
drink the water.
Yeah. Can't drink the water. That's our first.
Have a big, skull and crossbones on the cooler.
The
Town administrator says the water's safe to drink.
You first.
We're not.
I'm not doing it.
Yeah, you know what? I might put out pitchers of water at that meeting, just see if he'll actually drink it.
No. You know what? I'm sure it is. It's just the fact, all the treatment they got to do to the water to get it drinkable.
And then it's safe today, but then you test it in a couple weeks and it's not, and your kid drank it for a week, and then you worry. And
We don't, to be clear, our students and our staff are not drinking the
Right,
water
but-
currently. I just
Right.
don't want anyone seeing this to think,
Yeah.
this is,
Yeah.
Right, I
it
know.
is something that we have addressed.
yeah,
No, I know.
But
we talk
to
about
your
the
point,
school
it's
building.
another issue. Yeah, exactly. It's just another one of the issues. Not to mention, I mean, whereas Millville looks great on the inside, there's issues with
issues.
the well,
Yeah, it's issues.
with the well system and getting the water in and making sure that the water is safe to use.
Yeah, it's consumable.
and
Yeah,
it's
it's-
over capacity, and like there's just
Yeah, there's a lot.
looking at our big picture that we looked at. Is next Monday election day? That's when we're the 4th, right? Is all the.
Yep.
I wonder if. I mean, we don't have time to really do much. Too bad we don't have like a flyer. Or are these gonna be ready? Are we allowed? This one is allowed to hand out, right? Because we're not asking for a vote or
As long
something.
as it's
like that, right? Just
informational only, I
informational.
believe.
Think so.
So maybe if we can clean this up, we could get stacks of these out at the voting sites
Now you're saying Monday,
Monday.
this coming Monday. All right.
You got 2 days. Get it done, Matt.
Okay.
I mean, if it's too soon, I mean, if it's not doable, it's
Yeah,
not
or do you
doable. But I
wait
was just
for
like,
town
oh,
meeting?
there's a
Well, it's a
group,
good,
maybe
it's
a nice-
it's an excellent point that that's a forum that we can try to get this out to the public. So,
Well, there is going to be a mid-year election this year. Don't forget for the Senate, and we'll have a November election.
okay. Yeah, that's helpful.
Yep.
All right.
Well, I
Because
think
that's probably what we're
you
gonna
don't
be.
want to, but you don't want to wait till November to start to get people looking at this. I
Right.
mean,
But that might be the one that we have to start, if we are accepted and we're moving good with,
that's when
everything's
we're
good
going to
with
be pitching
feasibility.
the feasibility
we're gonna
study
be
and what is it
pitching
and
that.
what are we going to be doing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
drum up. Can you put, one other thing you might want to put in this, Matt, if you're going to hand these out? That email address that Jason puts at the bottom of, if you have a
yeah.
question, you can shoot an email to this.
Yeah.
That way it's not, they're not calling the school like, well, I want to know.
They don't just go on Facebook?
I don't remember where I saw that email address. Maybe it was in one of the Enlightener
Yep.
things because I read
I
through a
think
few
it's
of
supposed to be an
those.
easy one. I can't think of it. What
Is it like
So does
BMR
anyone on this
support?
committee want to
Support.
volunteer their email address to go on here? No.
Yeah, what's
I'm just kidding.
I have this great email. It's at BMR. It's M. Aaronworth.
Yeah, exactly. Which is fine. That's where they should come.
I'll just ignore those. Don't worry.
Yeah, I think it's something we could look at to see if we can get this out there. But again, all of the points that we've made about the document, those are really good points. Whether we can get it cleaned up in time to have a mass distribution on this coming Monday, not sure, but if we can,
I mean, I think everything but the timeline is probably pretty easy.
yeah. Yep.
Timeline shouldn't be that hard. Delete a couple of boxes.
And if you just delete
we
the,
can definitely
yeah.
work on it. We can definitely work on it. I just would not want to say, again, I also would want to review with Jason the email address and some of the potential tour dates.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely something we can.
But if you get something out like this, even if it doesn't have potential tour dates, just
Right.
dates TBD.
Yep.
Some of that stuff to at least get people thinking.
Yep.
If you can reach even a third of the population if we get that many people who come out to vote, because I don't know how many people vote in the small town elections, but
Varies every year, I think.
but if you could hit a third of the voting age population and get them at least thinking about this,
Yeah.
maybe it's people who don't have kids that are that haven't seen any of the posts or anything that.
So let me ask this, even though we've now drawn our attention away from the document, not in a negative way, is there anything on here that jumps out to people that we really don't need? To go in the other direction, to say, yeah, I don't think anyone cares, or not that they don't
Maybe,
care,
like,
but it's
maybe
not
the first section we
important-
could probably
right,
summarize some
it's
stuff.
not important to include this piece, because we're going to try to add a little bit more about the feasibility study. We're going to try to maybe add some email contact. We'll maybe leave space for dates and tours. We also want to just try to avoid, not that it's not a lot already, we don't want it to become entirely overwhelming.
No, but I mean, like there's a couple of we talked about cleaning it up. You talked multiple points about BMR being the building that needs the most. We concluded it, but it's the building that best serves the district's objectives moving forward. So, like the last point under the master plan, where you conclude that BMR is the building that best serves the district's objectives going forward. A newly constructed BMR might best serve those objectives, but the building as it currently stands does not.
Very true.
So maybe, shrinking some of that down, go with the less is more approach.
I'm not sure how to-
BMR is the space.
Right, it is the
Location.
It's the site
Site.
that would best serve the district's
Yeah, 'cause
objectives.
you're right, the building is not,
Yeah, the building is not.
it's, well, part of the building.
So I'm not quite sure how to word this, but at the top it says completed work. And that's completed work that we did, it's like our homework almost, but that's not the right term either.
Yeah, it's almost, it's really to show that we started this work a long time ago, and there
Maybe we
was a
call it-
lot of stuff that went into it.
So maybe we call it past work?
No, I'm not thinking that. I'm thinking that this was the precursor to get us to the statement of interest. That we
Initial
have
work?
done everything necessary to get us to that point. And then I thought the bullets up the top that we've already done should be check marks. Kind of like we've done our homework.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's a good idea.
Leave, so have bullets where we have to move forward, but check marks where we've already completed. To
Oh, I
show
like
that
that.
we're progressing in the right direction.
Keep it completed work, or,
Yeah, because the other thing that I've seen done is like, the completed work is like phase one completed work, and maybe it's got a colored bar that comes a quarter of the way the page, and then the next one would be a colored bar that comes halfway across the page with the title in it. And I've also seen it this way, where it's, it starts here, starts here, starts here.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to show that
the
this isn't
progression.
just, we didn't just come up with a statement of interest. In order to qualify, in order to be taken serious and accepted, because we've submitted multiple statements of interest that were just done, okay. We actually did everything to show that we're serious about this. We've identified our deficiencies. We've done the requirements. They want to see a maintenance plan. They don't want to give us money for a building that isn't going to be maintained.
Right.
They've changed that mentality. So I don't know.
Yep.
I don't, completed work and current work, I'm just trying to think of different phrasing for that. Even though that is what it is, it's almost like, I don't know.
The initial work term might be better than completed work at least.
Or initial phase,
Yeah.
Yeah.
current phase, upcoming phases,
Yeah, like I keep coming back to homework, but it's not homework, but it's
exercise.
not the brainstorming, but the planning. We've done the
Yeah.
planning,
We definitely have.
I don't know, Greg might have a term, because I'm sure there's boilerplate language. I'll look on this site.
Yeah. And Mary, we can email too. And
Yeah, I mean, it might be fine, it might just be, I'm just trying to show that,
No, I
building up-
understand.
it's building towards
I
something.
like the difference too in
The check marks.
marking what it is that we have done.
Yeah.
And it has a positive connotation. Like it's not just that we, came to meetings. It's
Yeah.
like, no, we've done a lot of work.
similar to, I mean, this doesn't really, but you see the thermometer in front of every project with the red going out. So do we do something colored that just kind of,
Yeah, it's a good point. Maybe something.
or do we
like
show it as a rise, everything we've done at the bottom and we're getting here, we're climbing the ladder? I don't know.
Oh, that won't be ready
Kind
for
of like
Monday.
extending the timeline.
More of a timeline, yeah, but showing that this was,
Go back on the timeline instead of just.
Amanda
Say
was
spin
the
the-
graph,
spin the
was
page
the
landscape.
visual
Yeah.
artist, right?
Where's Amanda?
What's that?
Spin the page landscape, run your timeline, click
Yeah.
across it. Scott had
Page
brought up the,
landscape
my
and
phone.
do the timeline
that's the
from
most,
when we started to.
that's the most common.
Yeah. turn this into, instead of bullet points, just the facilities subcommittee, and you know, you'd have to really condense your language at that if you're trying to run an entire timeline.
Well, I think it's important to show all these things that we've
Yeah, I think
done.
this,
Yeah.
I think, I actually don't hate the way it's laid out, like to say that,
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm,
tidy it up a little bit.
yeah, I'm just trying to,
Yeah. Just ideas for improvement.
Another thought I have is.
We wanna make
are we
it
putting a
appealing.
yeah.
Is this on the website already?
No, I don't believe that this piece is yet.
Because if we created a little like a page on our website, we could put a QR code that people could like scan at like town
Yep.
meeting on Monday
Yep.
and be able to follow progress. So even
That
if we just
is-
put a holding spot for a page on,
That's a great idea.
because that's where we could put that video, like showing all the needs of the buildings and I don't know, just this form itself and some.
And we might not be there yet, but in whether it's in
Placeholder.
this iteration or another one, then that's a really good idea.
Most people now know how to use a QR code thanks
They
to
got
menus.
popular all over again.
Was it, which sporting event was it that they actually, was that one of the football games and they popped up a commercial and it was just a QR code bouncing
That was
around?
the Super Bowl.
The Super
Super
Bowl.
Bowl did it?
And it was like, nobody, like half the room didn't know what it was and the other half of the room
Themselves in
was
a
like,
QR code
oh
bouncing
cool,
on my
that's an
screen."
interesting commercial. It's like, great way to advertise. So,
They say that advertisement flopped if you read all the.
really? Probably because
So that was all the news stories about it afterwards.
the majority of people watching that game were my age and
Yeah. Well,
up.
Slightly lubricated.
That's another factor. Okay, so I think we have some really good next steps.
What about preparation? I'm looking on their site. Instead of completed work or,
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm going through, they have a process overview for this, for filing the statement of interest. Another keyword is due diligence process. Completeness. I don't know, just some keywords that are popped, they have in bold here.
Yeah.
I don't know if those are the right ones, but
No, I understand where you're going
I
with
mean,
that.
honestly, if we just put timeline at the top and just write the dates, take out completed work, current work, and upcoming, and just put the dates frames, then you don't have to worry about.
I don't know why
the
completed
words.
work is bugging me so much, because I know it
Feels like it's
It
done, but
almost
it's
sounds
not.
like it was some, who knows when, even though it's got a date, it doesn't really seem to jump out as we've done our homework to apply.
Yep.
I would just up to date.
I just,
And maybe with the check marks, there's a different way to lay it out a little bit,
yeah.
almost as a to-do list.
Well, I'm glad I went on here. New in 2022, SOI voter requirements. I hope Greg read this.
SOI voter requirement?
Vote requirements.
Yeah.
All required vote documentation must be uploaded in the SOI system in order to submit an SOI.
You guys get
I was on there this afternoon,
So I'm
as
sure
I
you-
mentioned, so
Yeah.
yes, I'm now much more familiar with all of the voting requirements. So, yeah, we took note.
Is that school
Good.
committee voting
I think-
requirements?
I think so.
They've
What?
already done that.
Is that school committee voting requirements that need to be uploaded?
Yes. That we may need to amend those, yeah,
Yeah.
just to make sure that it's worded properly and that we do everything according to their guidelines.
Yep. Make sure it's in the minutes.
Yeah, that's,
All right, moving on, we had just placeholder for discussion of capital stabilization fund. Is that part of?
yeah, actually, that was something that was brought up through the administrators, one of the chart of accounts email chain, and both Jason and I were saying, oh, there's an idea. We were wondering if the district is interested in it. And my initial take was, I always hesitate to earmark money for very specific things, because once we say this is a capital stabilization fund, any money that we put into that, then it's for capital. You know, if we needed it for anything else, we technically are not supposed to take it out.
But
There's always going to be capital.
I was going to say, but no, what I was going to say is I believe there was I'm trying to remember the way the facilities manager phrased it to me, because he has a capital budget every year, and it was, you know, if you set your threshold for what is capital and what is not at different points, it was really easy to change every light bulb in the building as a capital expenditure, because it was more than the $15,000 that you can improve on your own, you know, or $10,000, whatever that number is. Yeah. Where there's so many things you could use that money for.
Yeah,
that
I understand what you're saying. I just go to that general, like, oh, it wouldn't be instructional, or it couldn't, you know, it's not textbooks or something of that nature.
Yeah, capital is typically a building improvement,
Yeah.
a building cost, but
that being said, to Mary's point about going on the website, while I was in there and going through the website, there was reference to, you know, that it's a positive attribute for a district to have some type of capital fund that you know is for these specific projects. So
establishing that fund might also help some of the people in town sleep a little better, that, hey, you know, we put a little bit of money in this every year, and, you know, when we have to redo the roof in the Hartnett building, instead of having to borrow $1 million, we have $500,000 here we can already spend. You know, it'll offset some of that borrowing.
I don't think you can do that, though, because there's a monetary threshold that certain projects are paid for by the district and then others go back to capital for the town.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this stabilization would be for the smaller, you know.
that I'm not sure. We'd have to get a little bit more information.
Yeah, I'd be curious to know what that threshold
If
is.
it could, isn't it like 25,000?
Yeah, I know what our it's 20,000 for the district. But I don't know if there are regulations put on a stabilization fund that
Yeah.
says,
Be great.
you know, it can't be for any, you know, something that technically belongs to the town. Because again, we might be able to, let's say there was a $30,000 issue here, and this is the regional building, maybe we apply that $30,000 from the stabilization fund, and it just offsets the percentage of the cost for, you know, for the towns.
I think that'll be the key, is if this passes and both buildings are owned by the district, because right now it can get muddy. With Millville owns that, Blackstone owns that, you both own this.
Yeah. Is that something that this committee thinks, I mean, should we discuss that as?
I think we need more
School
detail. We need more details on what that could
Yeah,
be used for
not
before
very-
I.
And then this comes out of our operating budget, the district budget, right?
Yeah, and we've already just been through
Yeah.
a process
have
trying
money.
to set aside and deal with OPEB. And
No, but it's something that, as a going forward item, would be good to know what that can be used for, and at least be able to say, hey, you know, for next year's budget process, you may want to consider this, and here's the benefits. You know, so when you give that back to the
Right.
school committee, being able to say, here's the benefits of that, and understanding what that stabilization fund could really be used for.
I guess, what's the legality of E&D? If you have money left over at the end of the year, you're only allowed to have a certain amount. Could that be transferred into a stabilization?
it
The
could.
balance.
I'm pretty sure that it could.
That would be how I want to go.
Yeah. And E&D, whatever the use of E&D is, just needs to be approved by the towns. So,
Because you can only have a certain percentage.
yeah,
right?
you
can
can't
only
have
carry-
more than 5%
Yeah.
of the,
So if we had
current
6, I'd like to
current
put that
budget.
1% in stabilization type thing.
yes.
If we know what that can be used for.
I don't
So if
know,
can only be used for
that's where we
$20,000
might get
projects.
caught up. I don't know if we can plan and say like, oh, we're gonna go over, so we're gonna put this to somewhere else, and then,
An end of year transfer.
yeah. I'm not sure, yeah,
Kinda
I'm
like
not
free
saying no,
cash,
I'm
kinda
not
like free
saying no,
cash.
I'm saying, I'd
Yeah,
have to
before
look
you-
into it.
Yeah.
Before we started, you know, making those decisions.
Yeah, I don't know if
And
you can
quite
do-
honestly, we're nowhere near 5% of the budget
5%
right
me.
now. So it's okay. We're okay right now.
So are we leaving it at revisit with school committee? if we move forward with?
I would try to get more information
Get some more
in here first before we say whether or not it's worth.
I'll
bringing
bring
in
some
front of the
more.
whole school
I'll bring
committee.
some
Okay.
more information back on the 27th.
What that can be
regarding
used,
capital
used for, and
stabilization.
what, if there's cap limits on it, like if it's a $20,000 project, well, that kind of handcuffs a lot of things. But if it's, if that fund can be used for up to a $100,000 project, well, next time you need to replace a rooftop unit, there's money there to do that without having to go back and say, well, for next year's budget, I have to do this. It can get done right away.
Right.
And I will also, since I know I'll be right back in there tomorrow, I can identify what that language was from MSBA and kind of bring that here so we could see, okay, what is MSBA saying about this?
Can you,
I think the gist of it was they look more favorably upon a district that has this facilities maintenance, the facilities
the ability to
maintenance
take care of
plan,
emergency problems right
a
away.
a stabilization account and other.
some of that information, Matt, may actually be more beneficial to share before the 27th if you can.
Yep.
I know you have a million things on your plate,
I
but
understand.
that way, if we all look at it and say, well, all right, this doesn't make sense to us, we don't have to put it on the agenda just to bring it up and be like, well, we went through it all, but it really doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I can get that information out to everyone.
I'm sure no one has anything to do outside of their 9 to 5 jobs.
Right, and then we have public forum. We don't have any guests here tonight, but does anyone have anything else would be considered public forum to say or ask anything? So our next meeting is April 27th at 5:30 here. And then, just because I have it in here, May 9th is the Millville Town meeting, and we'll see about possibly doing like a tour or something at that meeting.
Your action items, are you taking full responsibility for them, or have you assigned them out?
My action
The
items.
action items for like getting all the district information, so we want that by the 29th. Are you taking it, or is it like who's taking that responsibility?
So we're gonna, I think Tara said she's gonna reach out to Jane and just see where we stand with being in touch with the town clerks and see what information.
If
The other
that-
action item is getting that Google sheet out there. That I'll do.
But if Jane hasn't been in touch with the town clerks, we should probably shoot it out to the group and see if someone can reach out to.
Someone can.
Yeah.
We
Yep.
do.
I can. If Jane
It's not
hasn't,
that
I
hard.
will.
If Jane hasn't done it, it's not that hard to send an email to the Blackstone Town
Yep.
Clerk, Millville Town
No,
Clerk.
if Jane
Parks and
hasn't, I
Recs.
will. So we'll just.
Okay. Thank you for that, Tara. And I will get that Google Doc going. I'll get the information on the capital stabilization and the MSBA language. And I will get working on cleaning this up as well as continue.
So it can be distributed on Monday?
Yes, maybe.
It's not this Monday.
Yeah, May
Yeah, it
April
is.
4th?
Oh, that's right, it is.
Yeah, that's a weird, like, the
I'm not sure how that
Sorry,
works
I
with the
didn't
town
realize it was the end of
clerk.
March.
I don't know how that, I know it's informational, I just don't know what her rules are.
We're gonna need to clean it up anyway.
Yeah.
So we'll work on cleaning it up and then we'll make a decision.
Yeah, we
as to
might not
whether
make
or
it,
we
but I
can-
know it's fast, that's why it's.
Yeah, no,
be
it's
hard
a
to
really
get
good
right into
idea.
it.
We're looking for these opportunities to get to the masses and have everyone understand more. And that's a great place to go.
Yeah, if it's approved, I'm fine with it, I just don't know.
Well, maybe we can ask the clerk when
Yep.
if we are circling back on some of the,
I'll do it tomorrow.
organization.
'cause
Yeah, so you'd have to ask the clerk
Millville's
tomorrow.
closed Millville's closed on Fridays, right?
Well, now you know how I feel with getting these bullets adjusted.
Fine.
Let's
Met
see.
your
Let's see if
assistant,
we
she's
can do it.
phenomenal.
Let's see if we can do it anyway.
Yeah.
We want our action items to be within reason, also. So we'll get there.
500 copies printed by tomorrow.
With a
Gotta
QR
be-
code,
It's
a
got to be
webpage.
adjusted. It's got to be adjusted.
I mean, Staples is right down the street. I know how to get this done.
All right, anyone have anything else? Motion to adjourn? So moved.
I second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, we are adjourned.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.